So we kind of termed right sizing for HANA, and to us, why it's very important, because lots of people think, or if I chuck more CPU at it, if I chuck more memory at it, everything's going faster. But if it's oversized, then you're not going to get much benefit from it. On the other hand, if you undersize it, then you do really have problems. So it's really important to get this right sizing correct and make sure that the AWS workload can manage that. And that's how we work with AWS, looking at each customer to say, where are you today? You know, here we go, 40 terabytes. What can we get you down to? And what does that mean when you go into AWS? So this is how we're working with customers today. Next slide, please. And how we're basically doing that, my analogy here, and I kind of use this all the time, if you were sitting in a nice 5-bedroom house and somebody said, in 6 months' time, you've got to move into a luxury studio flat, what would you do? You'd probably cry, but what you would do is you literally go around each room in the house and go, do I really need that anymore? If you don't need it, let's throw it away. But I may need this, but I can't take it into my luxury studio flat, so I need to put it into storage. And for the things that I do need to take with me, I will move. And that's exactly what we're doing with an SAP system. We're looking at data that you really no longer need because it's outside of the retention period, and that can be deleted. We're then saying other data, we need to put it into some secure storage where you've got day-to-day access to it, but the data that you need to take with you, take over to HANA. And that's exactly what we're doing. We used to do this manually. Next slide, please, Robert. We used to do this manually. Now we automatically do this. We have a product called the Proceed Rightsizer, which allows the customer to play what I call what-if games. So you put it on your system, it analyzes your system, it then allows you to say, if I was going to have a 10-year retention, how much data could I take with me? If I only want to delete data, how much, what size could I get into? And it's actually hooked into the SAP sizer so that we can come up with some very accurate sizing. Next slide, Robert. And to me, and to us, why this is important, because we can really do this fast analysis now with a customer, whereas normally it would have taken maybe 15 to 20 days to do this analysis. Literally, even on some of the biggest systems we've seen, 40 terabytes and above, we can get this down to 2 or 3 days where you can actually see what the savings could be before you move on to the business suite or S4HANA. And of course, if you're also doing a lift and shift, what's the point? For instance, a lift and shift to AWS, what's the point of not shrinking your database? So again, the lift and shift where you're sitting on either Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, ASE, we can also say how big a system you can get into. Next slide, please. And these are just some typical savings. So I always bet with customers, and the bet is at the bottom, if you've been running 4 years or more and have done no archiving, we can shrink your database by at least 50%. And that's really what we can normally do. We very rarely, if a customer's been running for more than 4 years, we can save at least 50%. And you can see some big savings here. There's some big databases out there, 50, 60, 70% savings, because people very rarely do archiving or housekeeping properly. Even people that have done, they say they've done archiving and they're archiving every day, we can always find more savings for them.